Hey Lindsay, how are you?
Hey! Hi!
Hi. Our guest today is Lindsay S. Nixon. She's the best-selling author of the Happy Herbivore cookbook series and has sold more than 200,000 cookbooks. She's spoken at Google, been featured on Dr. Oz, and her recipes have been featured in the New York Times and on Oprah.com, among many others. Lindsay is praised for her ability to use everyday ingredients to create healthy, low-fat recipes that taste just as delicious as they are nutritious. You can learn more at happyherbivore.com. I have your new book here, which is actually a bit of an old book, right? Because the Kindle version came out, it must have been about a year ago.
Yeah, the Kindle came out, I guess, spring of last year, but the paperback has more in it, so it feels like a new book, but it's kind of not, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's weird. It's a complicated issue.
It's all good. So I was really excited about this book because I'm so interested in trying to figure out the best way that we can support people in moving towards a plant-based diet. And you have probably more experience than just about anybody.
Thanks.
Yeah, so I consider this to be kind of like the Bible of going plant-based.
Oh, good. That's what I wanted it to be. It was like this thing that when you go plant-based, I have a question. It's in this thing.
Right.
So
yeah,
that's what I wanted.
Totally. So there's so much that we could cover, but I'm going to try to really respect your time, and I'll keep back the flood of questions as much as possible.
Go for it. Open the gate.
So the first thing that I wanted to cover, and I'm really curious about this myself, is, you've probably worked with hundreds, if not thousands of people, helping them transition. Do you typically recommend that people jump in 100%, or do you recommend that people transition slowly, and what are the pros and cons of each?
That's a really great question, and it is a little bit individual. I find the people who, pull the Band-Aid off and jump right in have the best success rate. Like, they do the best. And but then I've also met people who that wasn't going to work for them. And so it can be very personal, but I really feel if you do the full 100, go 100%, just jump in, pull the Band-Aid off, don't keep pulling it up, is best, especially if you have a health issue. If you're coming to a plant-based diet because you have heart disease or prediabetes or diabetes or cancer, if some medical issue is your primary reason, definitely do the 180. If you're just trying to get healthier and you're the kind of person where if it's just so overwhelming, it's too much, maybe the baby steps. But it's funny because even people who say they need baby steps, I find still do better with the 180. So like my parents, for example, were like transitioning for like 3 years. It was like, okay, we're using whole wheat flour now. And then it was like, well, we're not drinking soda anymore. Then my dad had a heart attack and magically they managed to go 180%. So it's different. The upside, of course, when you do the full 180 is you kind of get it out of the way. You just do it. If you have any kind of, withdrawal, cravings, you feel gross. A lot of people get like detox symptoms from, night sweats to feeling like they're nauseous to tired. There's all things. How many times do you want to do that? And then, really.
Definitely.
And they start to see the benefits right away. Like they feel it and it just kind of keeps them going and going. They're losing weight, they're sleeping better, they feel good. So that just like motivates them to continue. And when you're kind of like stepping down, you don't get that. And I have this in the book, I quote Pam Popper, she calls it a combination lock. Like it isn't until you get all 4 digits right that the lock opens. Like you don't get 75% of what's inside the safe with, the 3 digits. It's, the whole thing. And so I think that's definitely true. But that having been said, my husband is a success transition person. He went vegetarian and then he gave up the dairy. It's different for everyone, but in retrospect, he says he too wishes that he'd have
jumped right in.
Jumped in, yeah, because he said it became like a clutch for him, and like you know how like you hurt your foot, you end up compensating, and so he thinks that that's basically what he did, and it was frustrating at times because he's like, but I'm not really feeling all that much better. And I'm, he was having like some stomach issues. Of course, that went away with the dairy's gone. But when he first got rid of the meat, he kind of like increased his dairy. So his issues didn't get better. They got a little bit worse.
Right.
So,
yeah. And I know, so I think in the book you mentioned that you have this saying, which is nothing tastes as good as healthy feels.
Right.
Is that right? Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Cool. And I think when people are transitioning, like what the motivating factor is going to be is how much your health improves, how great you
Right.
feel. I mean, that was it for me. Like I went in 100% almost on a dare.
I love it.
Yeah, but I just went for it. And I thought, I mean, there's no way that I'm going to be able to stick with this, but I'm going to try it out. I'll give it a couple
Right.
weeks. And I felt so good that there was no going
Right.
back. So,
Yep.
and when I
I was
talked
the same
to,
way. Yeah.
yeah, and when I talked to Dr. Tom Campbell, he brought up this point about drawing a bright line in the sand.
Hmm.
And when you go in 100% commitment to something, you know exactly where you stand. And so it
Right. That's
eliminates all
true.
this ability that we have, which is our very
To
human
keep them to
nature.
ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, to justify, we love to justify our bad habits.
Yes, we do.
So if you go 100%,
Yes,
it
we
takes
do.
it really takes care of
No,
that.
I love that. Yeah, it does. It kind of tells you, okay, this is what I'm doing. And it was the same way. I went, vegan as an experiment, but I felt so amazing. I couldn't not continue. And I was like,
Mm.
oh, I mean, I was trying to
I
prove
know.
myself wrong.
Me too. Yeah, I definitely didn't want to become a vegan. It just
You're
kind of
like,
happened.
yeah, but,
Yeah.
and I really do think pulling the Band-Aid off is probably the best. And I like that idea of having a bright line because you can't ever convince yourself otherwise. And that was how
Right.
I was because when I first went vegan, I was eating a lot of like processed foods and garbage and stuff. And
Hmm.
then I was like, I really need to just like have whole foods. And I just stopped seeing those things as even options anymore. So there wasn't a temptation for me because I drew my line.
Right. So talk to me a little bit about this idea of progress over perfection then. So,
Yeah.
obviously we're recommending that people really go for it because you get to experience the benefit.
Mm-hmm.
But the kind of the other side of that is realizing that we aren't perfect people.
Yeah.
And I really love your philosophy. I love how you talk people through that. Tell me a little bit about where that comes from and why it's become so important for you.
Yeah. So one thing I notice when I've been working with people is they feel really overwhelmed, or if they do screw up, whether it's, they intentionally did it or it was accidental. So, for example, my parents were buying non-dairy creamer, completely believing that it was like plant-based and vegan, having no idea that casein is a milk product and that it's in something called non-dairy.
Right.
So, these things happen. There's such a big learning curve that I think a lot of people do oopsie, whether intentional or not. And then they just like beat themselves up and think, oh, I'm not perfect. I didn't do it right. So screw it.
Right.
And I don't want them to feel that way. And there was a huge learning curve for me. I'm still making mistakes 7 years later. The other day, I picked up something that was like a toothpaste. I almost bought it. And at the last minute, my friend came running down the aisle and was like, that has gelatin in it. Don't get it. Never would have thought to look at toothpaste.
Right.
But so I just don't want people to feel like if they can't be 100% perfect today, that they shouldn't even try.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my dog saying, I want my dinner.
I have dogs barking in all these recordings that I've been doing. It's all good.
But yeah, no, I just to make any effort, because even if you aren't 100% perfect, you are still doing better than you were.
Right.
And I love that old saying that like if you shoot for the stars, even if you miss, or no, if you shoot for the moon, even if you miss, you're still among the stars. And I just kind of like that idea that but yeah, so many people get so worked up like, oh my God, I have to do this and I have to do this and I have to cook all my beans from scratch. I can't have canned beans, or I need to make everything from scratch. I can't use anything that's from a jar, or it has to be organic and BPA free and GMO and all this. And it's just so overwhelming when you're coming from McDonald's.
Totally.
And I don't want people to be like, oh, it's too much, because and I know I felt that way. And it's gotten even worse, I think, now with people like, oh, and it can't be this, this, and this. And they're just like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
have your jar pasta sauce. You're okay.
Exactly. Yeah, and in order for people to be successful too, what I found is it takes a bit of a mindset shift. And part of that too is understanding that it is a journey. And by having the room to not be perfect and to understand that it is a process, then we can avoid those moments of like, screw it, like I'm done. This is too hard. I'm never going to get it. So as long as we just keep taking the steps forward, like you'll arrive eventually, and nobody's perfect.
Exactly. And if you, turn around a few times and get lost, that's fine. But no, I agree. And that's what I tell people. It's a journey. You're on a highway. You might get off at a couple of exits along the way, but the fact is that you get back on and you keep, progressing down the road. And I mean, that's even with my parents. It was very that's sobering, but a very clear reminder when my parents went plant-based, because by then I'd been plant-based for a number of years, and I'd been the Happy Herbivore, and so I'd been working with tons of people. But I had my parents who were starting from zero in their 60s, and it was just like such an awareness for me to realize how much of a learning curve there is, like how much has to change. Like their lives fundamentally changed in every way. Like for years, they had this standing date night where they went to this restaurant and they couldn't go there anymore.
Right.
I mean, they could, but they would just get like a sad little salad, and there's better options in other places. But, it was finding a new restaurant for them to go to. It's so much changes, and I think it can be overwhelming. So I tell people to do the best they can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So many people struggle with the social challenges, obviously. This is still, I've been at this 6 years, and it's still one of the biggest challenges for me. Do you still struggle with the social challenges? And if so, or if you don't, what are some tips that you have for people in terms of if they're not feeling supported, what can they do? If they're struggling with, eating out, what can they do?
The one thing to remember is when other people are being really dogmatic and negative, it's usually about them and their inner demons and not you. And of course, it's easier to say that than to take that in at your heart. But I had a lot of problems early on, and I distinctly remember this one girl, like she kept canceling dinners with me, and it was so strange. She stopped inviting me to her parties, and it was making our mutual friends really uncomfortable. And so finally I just was like, did I do something? Did I say something? And she basically didn't want to be my friend anymore because I was plant-based. And the end of our friendship was when she said she was going to buy meat just to throw it away to make up for the meat I wasn't eating.
Oh my
goodness.
It
was so weird because I never walked around and talked about it. I wasn't trying to convert her. And I even said things like, she's like, oh, you can't come to my party. There's nothing for you to eat. And I'm like, oh, don't worry about me. I don't need to eat. I just want to hang out with everyone. I mean, I couldn't have been more agreeable. And I just was like, I can't understand why what I'm doing is bothering her so much. And we're still not friends. But I later just came to realize that when people act like that, it's because we're a mirror and they don't like it and they get defensive just because of what you're being, even if you don't say anything. And so it's kind of them and their inner demons. But it doesn't change that it didn't hurt, that she didn't invite me or she didn't want me around. But now I think all my friends are used to it. They're kind of most of them are plant-based themselves now, or they're at least well, Lindsay's, weird and she eats kale. And my family's kind of warmed up. It's been a lot of years, so they're kind of over it. And then of course, getting my sister and my parents and my husband on board, we're kind of peer pressure now. We're like, hey, here's a group of us, deal. But it is funny because the other day I was in a yoga class and I've been taking yoga with this person for 2 years now. And and I talk to him all the time. We're Twitter friends, everything. And he made fun of vegans. And I guess I made a face and he's like, I didn't know. And then he was like, really? Seriously? I was just like, I can't believe this is happening right now. I've gone in there with a Happy Herbivore sweatshirt. I'm like, what did you think that meant? Did you not take a clip? My Twitter name is Happy Herbivore. We're friends
That's
on Twitter.
hilarious.
It says I authored vegan cookbooks, but but I take it in stride, and
I always think about if I try and decide if I'm going to tell somebody or if I'm not, and if so, at what point in the relationship I'm going to drop this bomb. It's really funny.
When does this come out? By the way, meeting new friends is the only time that I think it happens as new people, and it is like that. But mostly I think now, when I first transitioned, which was in 2006, vegan wasn't even a common word. People didn't even know what that word was. And it's become so much more mainstream because of celebrities and stuff that I think that helps. Definitely. It's normalized a lot. But I can remember going to, and it was from my big fat Greek wedding, I went to a party and she's like, oh, you're a vegetarian? I have fish. And I was like, and I was like, I'm going to pass.
Yeah,
I'm
been there, done that. So your experience has been that over time, it's gotten easier.
Yeah, I think people just give up. And the longer that you don't cave, and I find this to be true when I'm talking with a lot of people, as long as you stand your ground, they give up because otherwise if you give in, they're just going to keep trying to find your breaking point with peer pressure. And that's what happened with my family. They would just come at me and come at me. And I think after however many years, they were just whatever, just she's going to be whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, people don't like when you rock the boat. They try to like force you back. They're like, no, you're not going to do it. But my family is really, I mean, it's been amazing. It went from teasing and mocking to desperately trying to get me to cheat or eat something. And to now when we go and I see them, they'll like not only buy like vegan burgers from the store for me, they even put like foil down on the grill without me asking. So I'm just like, they're so thoughtful. So they, have patience. And if they don't come around, like my friend that threw meat away, maybe that person wasn't such a good friend to begin with.
Absolutely.
Because I wouldn't have cared if she said she was never going to eat broccoli again. Like I'd been like, all right, whatever, that's your biz.
Yeah. I think that's such a great perspective. And taking a look at the long-term, implications of it. It's over time, things get better. People come around.
Yep.
And what I find too, and I see these comments all the time, is that people were like, well, initially my family was very against it, and now suddenly my second cousin or the friend of a friend of a friend is, commenting about how she wants to start eating healthier, and you start to realize that you've been this positive influence all along, even if you didn't realize it.
You didn't know it. Yep, that happened to me too. Almost the exact same story. My mother has this best friend, and she has a daughter. And I know her daughter, but not well. We were not the same age or the same school, so we never really knew each other terribly well, except that our mothers were best friends. But I added her on Facebook like a billion years ago when I joined, whatever, Anne-Marie. I had no idea that Anne-Marie had been following me or paying any attention at all. And then one day she like saw my mom at a store, and my mom's like, wow, Anne-Marie, you look great. What are you doing? She's like, oh, your daughter, Lindsay, she was talking about being plant-based and how she had all these health benefits. So I read up on it, and I've been plant-based for the last 6 months.
Amazing.
Had no idea. This like chick that I don't know, that I don't talk to. That I, like you said, I had this inspiring effect. But I also think the results speak for themselves. Like it gets to a point where you don't even need to open your mouth. People aren't going to fight you on it because they see that you look amazing and you feel amazing and you're full of energy and you're not, sick like you were.
Yeah. So being able to, have your husband come on board and your parents come on board, this is like the dream of like probably everybody, who's embraced this way of eating. How did you go about doing that? Was it, did you have to push it all? Did you drop hints, or was it purely by leading through example?
It's kind of all of the above. So with my husband, I guess we'll break them each down. With my husband, he was supportive. He's like, okay, fine, but I'm not doing it. And I was like, that's cool. And we like found our middle ground where the house would at least be vegetarian, and he could do whatever he wanted outside the house, but I wasn't, going to cook meat or something anymore. Or if he did want meat, he had to cook it and put it with my, vegetarian meal that I prepared. Something that was just what we came to.
Yeah.
And then one day he just, I don't know if it was because he started reading up more on it, because he was concerned for me. I don't know what sparked him, but he started doing research, and he was very moved by the environmental benefits of a plant-based diet. He didn't care about fuzzy animals. He didn't really care about losing weight, but he was like really passionate about these environmental things. And so he decided to become vegetarian. Didn't tell me until like 30 days later. I about fell over. I couldn't believe when he told me he'd been vegetarian for 30 days. But at that point, I was like, okay, the door has cracked. I'm going to shove it open. And so I really kind of came at him with the cheese. But I mostly said, like, you have IBS and eczema, and look at all these studies that it says dairy will go away. And he'll tell you he did it kicking and screaming because he was a total cheese addict. But so that was a little pushy. With my sister, she was the same way. It was never, what, these earbuds hate me today. My sister, she swore up and down she would never, nothing. And I like talked to her. She loves animals, so I talked to her about animals. I talked to her about her health, like nothing was happening. So finally, she was visiting me, and I told her, listen, my house is vegan, so like no stuff's coming in, but you can do whatever you want when we go out to dinner. Won't care, won't make you go to a vegan restaurant, none of that. And to my sister's credit, the whole time she was there, which was like 5 days a week, I only saw her eat chicken once, and it was at Chipotle. And she denies this, but I remember. But for her whole life, as far back as I can remember, she always was really stuffed up, like chronic congestion and no antibiotics. Nothing would get rid of it. And so my sister decided she'd go to an allergist, and they told her she had these allergies, and they were food. It was like cottonseed, which is only in peanut butter and corn tortillas. So she just avoided those. But despite finding out she has this allergy to black pepper and cottonseed, and avoiding black pepper and cottonseed, she just didn't get better. And the medications weren't helping. Courtney's like, fine, whatever. I'm going to live my life with the stuffed nose. Never be able to do anything athletic, cool, whatever. That's just what I got in life. Visits me, and by the end of her visit, she's breathing clear. First time since she was a kid.
Yeah.
And she was convinced that it was the super duper clean air of New York City. Super clean air of New York, right? She's going to move. Yeah, she's going to move back to New York City, blah, blah. So she goes home, and sure enough, the allergies start back up, and she's like, I got to move, all this stuff. And I was like, Courtney, do me a favor. Go back. You were vegan the whole time you visited me. Here's a video. It was actually of Alicia Silverstone saying that she cured her allergies when she went vegan. And I was like, just humor me, like a week, like humor me. Mm-hmm. Done.
Yeah.
Clear, gone, healed, breathes, runs 5Ks now. Like her whole life changed.
Amazing.
And what we found out is that cottonseed is in the meal that's fed to all animals. Wow. So it's like literally in their muscles and in their milk. Yeah. And so, but when you buy chicken, it just says ingredient filet. It doesn't say cottonseed and soy,
Right.
And so that was it for her. It was me saying, hey, try this out. And then with my parents, my dad had a heart attack.
Right.
And they were going to actually throw in the towel because they're like, you made us go whole wheat. You made us give up Taco Bell. You made us give up soda. And your dad has a heart attack anyway. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, did you consider that it was because you made these choices that it was not a fatal heart attack? It was a mild one, and this is your second chance?
Yeah.
And they were like, oh. And I think they stopped seeing themselves as victims and they could empower themselves.
Yeah.
And then Dr. Esselstyn, who is amazing, called my dad up on the phone and was like, you need to go plant-based, bro.
There you go.
And
the big guns.
There's no arguing with them. And I think Colin emailed him. Dr. Campbell emailed him at one point, too. So I was like, that was like my moment. I was like,
did you set that up? Like, did you ask them, like, did you email them and be like, hey, will you call my dad?
Rip's assistant told Rip that my dad had a heart attack, and I was like in the hospital with my parents or something. I don't remember. And Rip called his dad and was like, you need to call Lindsay's dad. Wow. And they knew who I was, but I never even met them in person. Like they knew my work, but that was like my moment where I was like, I'm so grateful for the job that I have.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But yeah, there's no arguing with Essie.
Uh-huh.
They love it. And they tell me every day they're so sorry they didn't listen sooner.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and my friends, I think a lot of my friends just like saw me lose weight. They saw me run marathons, and they're just like, I want in, I want what she's got, so.
Yeah, that's so, I mean, I get this comment a lot, and I see this a lot, and I have this in my own life too, where it's like the people that we love, we know the solution. It's like, if you would just do this thing, you would see such good results. Mm-hmm. And it's so heartbreaking when people aren't open to it. And it's like this very nuanced thing. It's like you have to know, when the door is kind of open that you can push, and when you just have to completely be supportive and accepting and to lead by example. And when there's when there's heart attacks, when there's
that's the hardest.
Yeah. I mean, that is just like devastating.
And for me, I was like, I'm going to come at him full throttle because what's the worst that can happen? He hates me. I just was like, this is it. This was the moment for me. I can't bite my tongue. I can't bite my tongue anymore. I have to really speak up. But it's interesting. Like my neighbor next door to me has type 2 diabetes. And for 2 years, I've just like slipped into conversation, like, a plant-based diet versus that. I even bought him like prevent and reverse heart disease or diabetes, and was like, but in one ear out the other. So I just, and he'll like say, I'm feeling really awful today. When I ask him how he's doing, I'm like, I'm so sorry to hear that. If you ever want me to help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's
so frustrating because I'm like, I can help you. I can do it.
If they aren't open to it, then it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So a couple more questions. So I remember reading that you read Mindless Eating every day on New Year's. Do you actually do that?
Yes, I do.
That's amazing.
Yes, every year on New Year's.
So I want to talk about that because I love Mindless Eating and Slim by Design by Brian Wansink. It's all about the psychology and like setting up your environment in a way that helps you to succeed. And I love this kind of stuff. Like it's so amazing how much our psychology and our environment helps us to be successful or not.
Totally.
So what are the biggest...
All about the environment.
Yeah. So what are the biggest takeaways that you've gotten from either Mindless Eating or Slim by Design, and like what...
There's so many good points in those books. Like, and I've now read them like 13 times each, and I feel like I still get stuff out of it. But the biggest thing for me that I like to pass on to people is that, and you know, he if you're not familiar with him, he has this great lab at Cornell, and he does all these massive studies on people, and a lot of times they don't even know they're being studied. But anyway, one of the things that he found out is that if you think you're going to enjoy a meal or it's going to be good or amazing, it is. And if you go in with a bad attitude, you won't have a good experience. And that's something I always tell people is if you go in with a poor attitude or you think you're not going to like something or you're not going to succeed, you're going to fail, then you will. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. But if you go in with an open mind and a good attitude, you know, I'm going to love the hell out of this bean burger. You are. And the like examples that he did in the book was two things. Is one, he served this at this restaurant. They took over the restaurant and they served tomato soup, and they told everyone it was like this French chef was flown in and it was like super fancy tomato soup, and everyone's like, oh my God, it's the best soup I've ever had. I would pay $20 for this. It was Campbell's.
I remember that.
Remember?
Yeah,
and then
amazing.
like another time is they had 2 bottles of wine, and one was like a $3 bottle from California, and one was like a $20 bottle from Italy. And what they did is they actually switched the wines, but they didn't tell people. They just kept using it. And everyone was like, that California wine's garbage. That Italian wine's amazing.
Yeah, it's so true.
But it was all like you in your brain.
Yeah, it's so true. Okay, so the number one thing.
That's the number one thing, yeah.
Sit down to a meal.
Have a good idea.
What'd you say? Love the heck out of that bean burger.
Love the heck out of that bean burger. Yeah, love it. I'm going to love this bean burger. It's going to be the best bean burger of my life. Yeah, no, I really do think that, or even just having a positive talk with yourself, like, I can do this. I am going to do this. I'm going to rock this lifestyle. I am going to change. I'm going to lose weight. Like, just those, you know, the affirmations, the self-affirming ones.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I guess changed my life from that book was I don't eat out of, like, bags or anything anymore. I portion it out onto a bowl or a plate or whatever, and I walk away. And as, like, someone who is chronically overeating and always like, why did I eat all that? Life change. Yeah. Life change.
So along with that, that's why I think what you do with the meal plans is a really great thing, because it takes all the guesswork out of it, you know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing where if you come home and you don't know what you're going to eat, like the probability that you're going to go out to fast food or yeah, exactly, or, you know, eat something out of a bag, it's just so much more versus when if you take all the decision, you know, out of the equation, where you know exactly what you're going to eat when you come home, you know that you have this really fulfilling, delicious meal. You know,
it's waiting for you. It's
exactly.
Just right there.
Yeah,
right
you have
there.
the plan. So tell me a little bit about that. Like, why did you decide to do the meal plans, and in your own life, what kind of difference has that made for you?
So the meal plans came out of people were constantly being like, "What do you eat? Can you show me what you eat in a day? What are you eating? And what do I eat? Can you tell me what to eat? I need to know exactly what to eat." And it's because, like you and I were talking about, it's so overwhelming. Like, if your whole life has been like cheeseburgers and chicken McNuggets, like what am I going to do? Like, I don't know.
Totally.
And so I basically created a meal plan showing people what I was eating. Like, this is what I eat if you want to copy me. And so it just kind of grew out from there. And there it goes again. And for me, so I was following my own meal plans and doing it, but I was still taking days off. I would go out with my girlfriends and go to a vegan restaurant, or my husband and I would go out on a date night, something like that. And I kept like losing the same 10 pounds. And I was like, why did I gained it? Okay, I'm going to go back to being perfect. And I gained it. I go back. And I just realized I had this warped sense of like portions, or just how unhealthy maybe the deep fried tofu was at the restaurant. And so I had this photo shoot coming up where I was doing light and lean, and I knew I had to be like in a sports bra, and I was like, I gotta lose this weight. I have to look good for this photo shoot. And I committed to only following the meal plans and no longer winging it, or like you said, just coming home and being like, oh, what am I gonna do? Oh, well, let's order Thai food, you know? And just really kind of making that commitment. And it's been amazing. I got, you know, to the leanest I've ever been. I feel the best I've ever felt. And I really kind of learned my portions. Like, I finally understand, okay, I've had this amount of food. That's good. I'm good. I feel nice and satiated. Not like I'm going to just keep shoving it in my mouth, because that's what I would do.
Yeah, that's really interesting too, how you like learn what the appropriate amount of food is. Because it's true. I mean, we just have like, we're so bad at estimating and trying to figure out like how many calories we've eaten, or what the portions are that we've eaten. So that's really interesting.
It's been, having the meal plans has been a really great tool for me too, because sometimes I would eat like this big bowl of salad and I'm like, look at how big this salad is, not realizing that lettuce is like virtually it's like nothing. So even though I eat all this salad and it was a big bowl, like an hour later, I'm like, why am I hungry? Don't understand. And so, but the meal plans really kind of taught me how to, include starch, to make sure there's some beans or some grains or something, so that I'm not just eating lettuce and wondering why my lunch did not last till 2:00.
I just did that the other day. I mean, I make these like huge bowls of salad, and like I put a lot of stuff on there. I'm like, man, this has got to be, like what, 600, 700, 800 calories, and I put it in. It was like 350. I couldn't believe it.
You're like, what happened? Yeah, that happened to me today. I made like this huge like head of lettuce, and I had like a carrot and some tomatoes and a cucumber and a zucchini. And I finally computed it, and I was like, this is not even 200 calories.
Yeah.
No wonder I'm hungry, because it was like, I had lunch at 12, and then it was like 1:30, and I was like, I'm hungry. I'm going to go eat a rice cake. And I'm like, wait, why am I hungry? I just had lunch, because I ate lettuce. Even though it was huge, I could put my dog in the bowl.
Hilarious.
But so it's really kind of helped me learn, like, all right, okay, this is, and also when I go out to eat too, because, portions at restaurants are so huge, and I would just eat my whole plate, which, they talk about in mindless eating, you look for these like borders, and so, but now I'm like, okay, this isn't how much I would eat as my meal plan at home, so let me just take some away for later. But it's been a beautiful tool for me. Beautiful.
Yeah. So I understand you offer a 3-day sample meal plan, right?
Yep.
That people can sign up for. So if someone wants to give that a try, where do they go?
Getmealplans.com.
Okay. So check that out. That's a great resource. Fun. Yeah. And here's Lindsay's latest book, the paperback version. So if someone wants to order the book or to learn more about you, where's the best way to do that?
They can go to happyherbivore.com or find me on social media. I'm prolifically tweeting.
Yes, you are.
And Instagramming. Right now, especially, we have that whole Yogavore going on, so it's super fun yoga.
Yeah. Yeah, I really wanted to ask you about that, but I've already taken up way too much of your time. So.
Well, no. Yogavore it's awesome. I'm trying to get people to do yoga, and it's been amazing. It's only been one day in the series, and I've already seen like tons of people tweeting like, "Oh, it felt so good," or "I felt so much calmer," and I'm like, "Yes."
Yeah. I mean, for me, I was pretty much dared to go plant-based by my yoga teacher. And I was new to yoga. So, like, overnight, I started doing yoga. I started meditating, and I went, like, 100% plant-based. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, and it was amazing. Like, the synergy of those three was incredible. So I think it's really cool that you're introducing people to these other aspects of the lifestyle, because it's powerful medicine.
It is. I mean, just the breathing alone has helped me like nothing else did. I've had horrible OCD, anxiety, depression forever, and nothing worked, and yoga did.
Yeah. Awesome.
So fun.
Yeah. Well, Lindsay, thank you so much. This has been so fun.
Oh, thank you for having me. I had a blast.
Yeah, absolutely. So, wishing you the best of luck. If you guys are interested, go check out the book, check out the meal plans. Lindsay has pretty much the best resources on going plant-based of anybody that I've seen. So definitely check it out. Yeah. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.